I wasn't trying to get kicked out of Scientology. I was trying to not get kicked out of Scientology. So what happened first, my mom got kicked out for basically talking some smack about David Miscavige. And then they go to me and they go, okay, you've got to disconnect from your mom or you're going to get kicked out. And I lied about that. I was like, okay, I'll disconnect. But I never did. For a couple of years, I lied my ass off about it. Eventually, they were like, this guy's going to keep lying to us, right? And they're like, yeah. Like, all right, you're out. So then they go to my wife. So you got to divorce your husband or you're going to get kicked out. And she goes, no.
That's a hell of a statement from her.
It's going to get harder from here. So I'm not quite sure how to. Okay. So I'll try to do my best.
You don't seem like a man who's afraid of hard things.
Okay.
So she's like, no.
So then they go to her parents. And they say, you've got to disconnect from your daughter and your 3 granddaughters, or you're going to get kicked out. But they have 3 other kids who are Scientologists, who have spouses who are Scientologists, who have grandkids. So I feel like up until that point, everybody was sort of making a decision for themselves and what would be best for themselves until they get to her parents. And then they're like, which grandkids are we going to lose? Okay. At the part where they were trying to get me to disconnect from my mom, there were hours that I spent talking to them going, you know, guys, there's another way. It doesn't have to go this way. There's another way that ends well for all of us. And that wasn't even considered. And I go, like, they created this monster. And that's a fact. And that's why I take joy in it. When people ask me, is Scientology a destructive cult? I don't even have to get into all the academic discussions of what's a religion and what's a cult and what's the difference. I go, as long as they destroy families like that, they're a cult.
So they cut people off deliberately, one by one. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
And why is it that way?
I mean, it started with L. Ron Hubbard laying out a policy framework, a policy structure that, if interpreted and applied in the worst possible way, with the worst possible judgment, can be abused in that way. I would make the argument that if an Annie Broker had taken over, that Scientology policy does have enough little caveats baked into it that even the policies about disconnection could be interpreted and implemented in a non-destructive way. There is room for judgment and discretion. And Miscavige has just created the worst possible version of Scientology. And that's where you sort of get that argument of, does he even want Scientology to succeed? Because he seems to be hell-bent on making sure that he doesn't.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see him make it succeed. But it does bring that question up of, like, what are his motivations? Can he not see that he's destroying the thing he's supposed to be expanding?
That's also, there's ways to measure cost. And that would probably be the most costly aspect of Scientology, is the suffering associated with the separating of families.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually just makes it very concrete what we value in human life. Is the connection to our loved ones. Like, everything else doesn't matter. Like getting $50 a week, like that, like getting money stolen from you, getting the truth stolen from you. None of that compares. You can even frame that as the good. There could be a lot of positives, whatever, in the tribe, but separating families, separating loved ones, that's the destructive thing. So no hate, though.
No, I genuinely don't hate them.
Do you forgive them?
100%. There's no one I look at in Scientology that I go, how dare you? If I was in their shoes, having to, operate under David Miscavige's orders, I would have done the same thing and I would have loved it. Truthfully. I don't blame any of them. I mean, I take the opposite approach. If they knew what I knew, they'd be doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
If they knew what I knew and believed it, they'd be doing what I'm doing. They're not dumb. It's not dumb people in Scientology.
they're ambitious, they're dreamers, they got hope, they're driven, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it's one of the reasons I like putting up content on my channel so they can see, hey, like if you're a Scientologist, you look at that and you go, hey, he seems like he's doing well. He's happy. He's a positive guy. He's a good communicator. He knows what he's talking about. He's not lying. He's not exaggerating. I don't exaggerate anything on my channel. I don't make up anything. And this actually comes from an experience I had from 1998 to 2000. I was living in LA. I sort of had a 2-year period of my life where I actually had almost no contact with Scientology. And during that time, I found my way onto the internet. And there was a website. It might have been ESMB, ex-Scientology message, but whatever it was at that time the main source of critical information about Scientology on the internet. And I looked at it. And remember, I was still a true believer. And I looked at this, and it was so offensive, insulting, hyperbolic, exaggerated. I was like, oh, just a bunch of bullshit. I was in Scientology for 16 more years. If what I had seen on the internet about critical of Scientology, if what I had seen when I had seen it was something that actually resonated with me, that I was like, oh, that I believed was true, that seemed credible, I would have gotten out of Scientology 16 years earlier. So I was like, how can I help create an experience on the internet that if a Scientologist stumbles upon it, it will resonate with them instead of repelling them? And that is exactly what I have set out to do and what I believe I've accomplished.
There's the content, the message, but also just showing that you can be happy outside of Scientology.
Exactly.
You can have a fulfilling life. You can be a good man.
Yeah.
All of that.